Intersex is not a third sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's two sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex.
What is a woman? I'll tell you what a woman is.
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is.
I am now a woman because...
A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You have no argument here. Do you understand that?
Let's jump into another debate, guys. I have not seen this yet. Let's see what we get.
Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just pointing it out.
Is there anything you do? I mean, do you put the bins out? Do you the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
I don't do shit.
The piece of shit that you're married to, yeah, he clearly doesn't respect you.
Oh,
he sits there and makes jokes about how he married you. He doesn't do shit around the house because that's why he married a wife.
Clementine, do all lives matter?
Do you know what? All lives do matter. And
thank you.
What's controversial?
But the one terrible thing you found I've ever said, you completely agree with. Clementine, do you hate men?
No, of course I don't hate men.
Why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet.
Apologize to men again. Do it again.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life.
All right, well,
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is rarely out of the spotlight. That's her job, after all, and for what it's worth, she seems to be very good at it. But a behind-the-scenes photograph posted by a colleague for Mother's Day in America has divided opinion, even among a generally appreciative MAGA base. 16 million people saw this candid snap of Leavitt in the White House, seemingly holding her baby son in one arm while, quotes, owning the libs, close quotes, with the other. A lot of those people applauded her as a super mom. Many others criticised her for aping conservative family values while actually promoting a feminist myth about women who can have it all. That might seem a bit harsh, but the MAGA movement she's part of has made big inroads in popular culture by promoting the return of traditional gender roles. Here she is talking about masculinity back in 2023.
A man is someone who stands up for his family, provides for those that he loves, and contributes to his community. A great example, helping an elderly woman with her groceries, helping a neighbor or a friend, putting others before yourself. That's the definition of a man. I'm proud to have so many strong men in my life, 2 older brothers, a great father. We love men, we need men, and as women, Jen, we should not be afraid to say that.
Well, men are definitely awesome, and I do support that idea. However, my definition of man is a little bit different. A man tends his own garden, and what I mean by that is takes on the burden of responsibility for what he has been given. We all are given different things in life, and we all start in different places. As long as you as a male, are willing to take on the burden of responsibility and be responsible for whatever God has given you, I would say that is the main definition of manhood. And also, I don't think there's anything wrong with women working and raising kids. Like, there's morally nothing wrong with that. Like, all you need to do is all you need to do for kids, okay? Teach them to love Jesus, have good relationships with them, and teach them to think for themselves and don't let them die. That's about it. You can accomplish that in like 1,000 different ways. Okay, some ways are better than others, but if you're a very disciplined individual, there's nothing wrong with you working as a woman and taking care of your kids. We don't have to return to traditional gender roles. They worked for a long time, but now we have other options, and that's fine.
I've been a huge backlash to the whole era of demoralising all men as miniature Harvey Weinsteins with ambitions that are wickedly patriarchal. Coincidentally, you can read about how that's going on in my upcoming new book, Woke is Dead. Has there ever been a better time for a book called Woke is Dead? But where does the renaissance of masculine men leave the women? We thought it was a very good idea. Andrew Wilson was extolling the virtues of a more limited female role in a previous debate on Uncensored when a shocked Emily Austin said this.
Are you married?
Yeah, I'm married. How do you make married with many children?
Is your
How
wife
about you?
happy?
You married with children? Oh, she's ecstatic.
No, I'm 23. I'm a boss lady girl, which seems to be driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Working, making money,
I'm just pointing
waiting
out
for the right guy to
the
come
only
along.
thing you have no arguments. You just try to assault me personally.
Well, Andrew Wilson's apparently ecstatic wife, Rachel, got in touch on X and told me she'd like to participate in our next debate. And so she will. She'll be joining us alongside an all-new panel of boss lady girls. Well, joining me now is the host of Crucible, Andrew Wilson, Andrew's wife and author of Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation, Rachel Wilson, Emily Wilson, no relation, from Emily Saves America, and the feminist writer and author of I Don't, The Case Against Marriage, Clementine Ford. So welcome to all of you. Andrew, great to have you back on Uncensored. Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just pointing that out.
Everyone seems to be either called Wilson or Emily in this debate, in this two-header. Rachel, welcome to Uncensored. You reached out to me on X and very boldly said, if you want to debate this properly, get me on. You're here. How are you feeling about this?
Well, thank you for having me, Piers, and thank you, Andrew, for unchaining me from the stove just long enough to appear today. I got a day pass from the patriarchy.
Patriarchy is benevolent.
So true. Yeah. So I'm very happy to be here. People love to attack my husband via me. I'm like the favorite way to do that. So I thought, why not come on and talk to people myself?
Well, this should be fun.
So look, Rachel, let's just cut to the quick. A lot of Andrew's critics, not me, a lot of his critics say that he's an obvious, blatant misogynist. He thinks all women should be, kept at home, working away on the stove, the housework, whatever it may be, and know their place in life. You are actually married to him. You've been subject of mockery inadvertently through the last debate we had about this, for having to endure being his wife. What is it like being married to Andrew Wilson?
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, he's hilarious. He's a really smart guy. He's very charming. And most of all, he's a great dad and a great husband. And I share his worldview, so I would agree. In fact, I would say I would probably be the more bitter misogynist out of the two of us. If you really had to pick one, it would probably be me.
That's interesting.
So
really, why do you say that?
I just think that feminism has absolutely destroyed so much of what I hold dear in life, and it's held me back more than it's helped me. It's one of the reasons I started looking into the history and investigating it for myself. And I think it's just created a world where we now have a two-income economy, and for women like me who do want to prioritize motherhood, it makes it extremely hard. It just makes it financially difficult. I faced tons of social pressure. Had my first daughter at 20, wanted to stay home. Everyone around me, even the so-called Christian conservative women, told me it was a terrible idea. You can't do that. You have to bring the baby to daycare. You're going to put yourself at risk. Your husband's going to hurt you. You're going to be abused if you don't have your own money and your own career. And I think it's backwards. I think it's the most inefficient, stupid thing we've ever come up with. And that in the future, people will look back at the feminist experiment as a goofy time in history where we tried this wild experiment that failed miserably, and thank God it's over.
Wow.
That's interesting, because you could do whatever you want, and whether or not it should have changed, we are where we are now, and the ideal traditional value is just not feasible for a lot of people. The economy is just so bad. In order to keep your children alive, you have to work 2 jobs. And the weird thing is, people always try to bring it back to, the Bible and stuff. The Bible doesn't say you have to do it that way. It says you get to, if you're in the right economic spot. It says that you can. It describes, culture at that time. But it doesn't say you have to, do it this specific way. If you are in an economy where it's just not possible to, to raise a kid on 1 income, then you do what you have to do, and you have 2 incomes. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We could debate until the cows come home as to whether or not we should have created that economy to begin with, and I think that'll be really, really fun. But I don't necessarily agree that, you're morally or ethically bound to do it a certain way. Certainly not from a biblical perspective.
Oh, okay. Well, Clementine Ford, I'm sure that you agree with every word of that, don't you?
Firstly, I'm very glad that you're happily married. It's great. You know, a lot of women are not happily married and they find it very difficult to leave marriages, particularly because of the financial strain. So good for you. I do think that your historical understanding of feminism is extremely skewed. The idea that somehow we've only created a two-income household because feminism has tried to destroy the world is historically inaccurate, in large part. Well, firstly, you're also talking about feminism from your very, and when I say limited, I'm not trying to insult you, but the limited perspective of feminism in America and the understanding of the economy in America. It's not taking into account the global reality of the fact that women have always worked, women still continue to work. Women, for the most part, produce the majority of the world's underpaid, if, you know, drastically underpaid labor. When you talk about a two-income household being somehow instituted by feminism, you're failing to take into account that even in America, you know, the kind of the glamorization of this golden age of marriage in the 1950s to the early 1960s, which the marriage historian Stephanie Coots calls the long decade. This coincided with an increase in women in the workplace. So it's not as if there was this golden age where women where married women, weren't working. For a lot of that, actually, the labor that is required to support the middle class has always been relied on for poor and disenfranchised women, largely in America, black women. Look, for a start.
Well, that's interesting. And I would have to dig more into the history, but I do find it interesting that everyone seems to have cherry-picked their own historical facts. And what I would really be interested in doing is just collecting all of it together and creating a more holistic, cohesive picture of what actually happened. Because it seems that everybody seems to engage in cherry picking their favorite historical facts. And a lot of times we do correlation equals causation fallacy. Like, just because things look similar and that they're correlated doesn't logically follow that one of them caused the other. And so that's really interesting. And then it also opens up the idea that, you know, not all labor is paid. Like, obviously motherhood is labor. Like, it's a labor of love. There's so many mothers in my life, you know, from siblings, cousins, and people that I love and care for. They don't get paid to raise the kids, but it's labor. It's hard work. And, you know, it depends on, and I do believe that, you know, both parents bear a responsibility for raising the child. And it's kind of up to you how you want to split it up based on what economy you're in. Like, it makes sense that one gets money and one takes care of the child if you have the ability to do that. But the cool thing is, like, you can kind of, you know, split up the workday the way you want. Like, so for example, I'm a YouTuber, right? So if I get married and I'm making money from YouTube, you know, maybe I work in the mornings. I work pretty well in the morning. So maybe I work, you know, 6 hours in the morning. My wife has the kids, and then my wife wants to build her YouTube channel and do her thing. And so I take the kids for the afternoon and help her out, and she goes and does her thing. And then maybe we share some of the labor in the evening. Like, you can kind of split it up the way that you want. It doesn't have to be any one particular way. That's the great thing about life, and why these conversations can be so frustrating, because everybody takes it, they cherry pick their own statistics, and it's like, okay, this statistic says that my way leads to like 60% better results, so my way is the best way, and everyone is now morally obligated to do it. Sorry, but like, that's rarely the case. But let's
let me just finish.
Well, we all have to speed things up a little bit.
And the economy, the downturn in the economy, the boom that happened after the Second World War was unsustainable. It was a wonderful time between around 1940 to 1970 for white working class men in particular, and then it began to
but I have a question
rapidly.
for you.
One of the reasons why women had to go into the workforce was because they had to help support their families.
Okay, I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
Piers, I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't
trans
mention
women are women.
trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you. I know that because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman? I'll tell you what a woman is.
It shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry?
So
Wait. Okay. There was this one time, guys. Let me respond to this really. And one time, I was in a city all by myself, and I saw this great big enormous dude. I was kind of scared. Am I a woman now? I am now a woman because I traveled and I was alone in a city that I didn't know by myself, and I saw this sketchy looking dude, and I was a little bit frightened. And I, crossed the street, prayed to God, asked that he would protect me from any, sketchy people, and thank God he did. But does that make me a woman? What a ridiculous definition. Are you born with a vagina? You're a woman. That's it. It's super simple.
But you guys never want to talk about that.
Hang on.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So any man who's ever felt afraid of another man is a woman.
No.
What are you talking
That's
about?
not what I'm saying.
This is exactly why you're wearing that shirt that says repeal. You should put the 19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman, anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Would you let me finish speaking, or do you
how
just
long
plan
is it going to take for you
all
to
night
finish? How long is it going to take for you to finish?
Yes, do you really just invite people on your show to be interrupted like this?
Well, Clementine, look, with all due respect, we did do a bit of research into what you said about me in the past, so I think I'm entitled to give you...
So you already know what I think about that question, because I've written about you asking that question.
Yes, you have. In fact, you said, like all of
so
the
why
big...
would you ask it again when you know what my answer to that is?
I'm just to enlighten the audience who have no idea what you're talking about or me. Like all of the bigots, that's me apparently, currently jumping on the transphobic shuttle to Ding Dong Station. Morgan wants you to believe this is about fairness and equality, specifically fairness and equality in women's sports. That was exactly what it was about. And the problem is, Clementine, with all due...
by the way, I just happened to notice, Andrew, Andrew, it's a bit of a chain smoker, ain't he? Didn't he just have one? One? Not judging,
the reality is...
I doubt it. I doubt it's coming with due respect.
I'll treat you with perfect respect, but your inability to just simply state what a woman actually is, particularly given 2 weeks ago in the UK, the Supreme Court made it very clear that a woman is a biological female. That's it.
Thank God for that.
It's a scientific fact. The fact that you can't answer that is part of the problem.
I'd like to know, the thing is that I would like to know why you, in particular, are so obsessed with this definition of what a woman is. Firstly,
because it's simple, and it's important that we keep a grip on reality. Otherwise, people start making stuff up that makes no sense, and it starts to hurt people really, really fast, and society crumbles. Okay? That's why. That's why it's important. It's such a simple thing, and yet people seem to have it in their heads that they can just willy-nilly rewrite the laws of physics and biology, the very foundation on which modern understanding, technology, and industry is based on, and expect society not to collapse as a result. That's ridiculous. So it is important. And the fact that these people are so moral and self-righteous, they can't give simple definitions for stuff of what they think, is one of the reasons why I'm not on the left. Even though I don't always agree with what conservatives say, I'm not on the left for that reason. Because they just can't even be bothered to have a cohesive definition of what a woman is.
How does it impact you in any way? Secondly,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
As a woman,
I have a 13-year-old daughter. And if my 13-year-old daughter decides she wants to compare... You ask me a question. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer you. Well, if you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question. Here's my answer to your question. I have a 13-year-old...
You asked me. You won't let me answer.
I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have 7 nieces, right? And some of them are very... So if I may answer your question, some of them are very good at sport. Right? The idea that they would one day have their dream of potentially an Olympic place or a Team GB place, whatever it may be, a world championship place, taken from them by a biological male, I think is completely outrageous. And by the way, so does most of the
repulsive.
world now, which is why there's been a reversing, screeching U-turn on this particular subject. But I come back to my question to you. Your inability to say what a woman is, and yet here you are lecturing women on how they should behave as women, is completely perverse.
I think that reducing women specifically to your biological deciding of what you think a woman is.
It's called science. It's their chromosomes. You have different chromosomes to me. It's not me saying that. I'm not writing.
I'm sure you're not the first.
I'm not writing the science.
I'm not the first person. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you about intersex people. So how do you?
I'm not talking about intersex people.
No. This is all wrong anyway. The intersex is not a third sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's two sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex. Anybody can look that up in 5 seconds. Total lie. Yeah. How did you not know that, by the way? How did you not know intersex is not a third sex?
I didn't say that intersex was a third
You did.
Sex. But intersex
exactly
people
what the implication
exist,
was.
And intersex people have people can have a mixture of chromosomes. So if you
are you saying they're a third sex or aren't you?
If you present to the world as
if they're not a third sex, then you have no argument here. Do you understand that? If he's what he's saying is this is what is objective. This is
trans women.
Yeah.
Well, intersex would be the exception to the norm. That's what that is. It doesn't mean that we change our definition of a woman. We come up with a new definition for what the exception to the norm, something that is outside of what normally happens. And we call them intersex people. Like, why is this so hard? I don't understand. Guys, help me out. Help me out in the comments here, okay? Why is this so difficult?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Why are you so obsessed with defining trans women? For a start.
Yeah.
No, everyone has interrupted me. Let me speak for a moment.
You just asked a question.
Let me speak for a moment.
You can't keep asking questions, Clementine, and then refusing to allow people to answer. If you don't want to answer, don't ask a question. The truth about the problem is feminists in particular, I've noticed, feminists have latched on over the last few years to this idea that if anybody raised any concerns about the way the trans lobby was trying to make things unequal, unfair, and unsafe for actual women, then they were immediately transphobic. I kept saying, I want trans people to have the exact same rights to fairness, equality, and safety as me or you.
Same.
However, what was happening was women's rights were being eroded, so that things were not fair, they weren't equal, and they weren't safe. And we saw absolute parodies of this in the Olympics, in the boxing ring, where people who have been banned from the World Championships because they apparently reported positive for male chromosomes were getting in the ring and beating women up in the ring. And so a woman's going to die if this was allowed to carry on. So now people have stopped it. Now sporting bodies around the world have stopped it. But you, Clementine, I say this respectfully, are still flying the flag for this bullshit. And you can't even say what a woman is. And I just find the fact that you want to lecture women like Rachel on how they should be as a woman is completely perverse, given you don't even know or don't want to say what an actual woman is.
I haven't said anything to Rachel. I haven't said anything to Rachel. I've never met Rachel before in my life until today.
Well, you responded to responded to what she said about the role of a woman.
I wasn't lecturing her.
Well, it sounded like you were lecturing to me. Let me bring in Emily. Let me bring in Emily. She's been waiting.
Let me bring in Emily. She's been waiting patiently. The historical reality of economics in the US.
Let me bring in Emily.
But you wanted to divert it to talk about trans women because that's clearly.
No, you banged on about trans women. I just said to you, if you don't know what a woman is, we've got a problem.
You asked the question.
She's wrong.
No,
she's wrong about the economic history. She's the one looking at it through an economic prism that's extremely narrow. She's using feminist standpoint theory to try to tell us what the history of economics is. Yeah. She can't explain to us why through all of human history and all of Western history.
Let her finish, lady. Let her finish, lady. You talk plenty, lady.
Why through all of Western history we were able to raise a family, like a janitor could raise a family with 4 children on his income up until 1970. And what happened in 1970? We pushed women into the workforce in huge numbers, and we practically doubled the workforce overnight by pushing mothers and women into the workforce This happened right alongside the creation of gender studies as an academic discipline. And now we are in a situation where we don't have a family economy. We have an individual income economy, which means most people can't raise a family without both parents working.
Okay, let me bring in Emily, who's been waiting very patiently. Emily, good to see you again. Now, you started a kind of MAGA civil war when you railed against women who want to be a trad wife. You posted a TikTok video, which caused a lot of mayhem. Let's take a look at this.
No, let's see.
I'm sorry, I hate to call out my own party, but the young girls on the right promoting this like trad wife bullshit. I just want to make sourdough for my husband. That's great. I'm all for it. I promote traditional values. I understand. I have been working since I was very young. I don't really plan on stopping working. I suggest you find a hobby that makes you money. But you guys, guess what? Guess what, baby girl? That lifestyle working out, a man, a provider, you just get to sit at home, bake bread every day, slim to none. I would say none that's going to work out for you, or quite literally anyone you know. You're actually setting yourself up for failure, because it could not be easier, if that's what you're going to pursue, to be trapped by a man. Okay? Also, let's bring some other things to the table besides sourdough. Guys want to be mentally stimulated as well as physical, okay? But I'm just like, please, you guys are too young to be promoting this. And also, by the way, it's cringe. You guys are cringe, okay?
Yeah, it's really the trad wife thing is quite cringe, and it's an idealized version of tradition that's not like actually real. Like if you read Proverbs 31, the Proverbs 31 woman does a lot more than just bake sourdough bread all day. And again, it's not realistic. You extrapolate out of these common norms that we see throughout history, and then it becomes this ideological, fictitious thing of like what life was actually like back then. Life was a lot harder than just sitting around and baking sourdough bread all the time. And, you know, everybody has to work, and everybody worked. And so, yeah, I think the whole trad wife thing is cringe, and it's a hyper idealized version of what life used to be like, but it's lost all of its nuance and its depth and like its meaning. It's like hyper packaged and stylized for social media, just hopping on ideological trends, and I don't think that is healthy either. I feel like everybody's just swinging one way or the other, but there's so much play in between, and everybody just wants to have their extreme and force that on to people, and it's kind of weird. Well, that'll have to do it for this video, but we're going to continue with this interview and get more of Andrew Wilson. Hopefully we go more into the trad wife thing. We're going to be talking more on the trad wife video next, and you can watch that video right here, so I'll see you there. Cheers.